Hello and welcome to Euphoria. Today we're going to look at the process of buying the parts for my new MOC, which is a half modular building of a deli and shop with a small apartment above. In this series of videos we're looking at the whole process of design, and later I'll be making this building out of Lego bricks and placing it in my Lego city. This is going to be a half modular building, and I'm basing the idea around this little building, which is the Corner Deli from Lego set 76311. We've already done the design work, and you can see that in the previous videos in this series. So now we have to buy the parts to enable me to build this model. So join me in this episode where we'll be looking at the procurement process for this new MOC. In previous videos we looked at the inspiration for starting this MOC after making the little deli building from Lego set 76311. We put quite a lot of thought into deciding on a more definite concept for the MOC and spending time to visualize some ideas and working out how we could make it into a modular building. This will be a city building, and we settled on a European style for the building that might allow us to have some interesting colours and features to make a building that will fit well in my Lego city. Even though it's not very large, we're going to create the impression that it's two narrow buildings with the deli on the ground floor of one, a small shop in the ground floor of the other, and an entrance to the small apartment on the floors above. There will be 4 sections or modules: the pavement and ground floor with the 2 shops, the first floor with the living space of the apartment, the second floor with the bedroom for the apartment, and the roof with a roof terrace or roof garden. In the last video we more or less finalised the design of this MOC in the Studio design program. I'm very happy with this design, and I think we developed something that more or less aligns with the original concept for this MOC as a small European style city centre building with a bodega on the ground floor and apartment above. Now in this video we're going to look at the procurement process and the progress we're making on getting all the parts we need to build this MOC. So we'll be dealing with things like creating a parts list, buying the parts and receiving them, updating the computer model if required, and preparing for the build itself. We'll be using the Bricklink website to deal with the parts list and to check on part colours, availability and price. After adding all the interior details, the fixtures and fittings and furniture, there are about 1430 parts required for this MOC, which is, as you might expect, about half of those needed for a standard full modular building. For this particular MOC, I already have some of the parts I require, either those from the little set we started with or from my own stock of parts. So I'll be trying to make the most use of those parts to minimise the amount of additional bricks that I need to buy to complete the build of this MOC. The actual cost of the pieces will depend on how I do the procurement of the parts, which is what we'll be looking at in this video. So the first thing to do is to make a list of all the parts that make up the model. This needs to be an accurate representation of all the parts we need. We can do this by exporting a parts list from the Studio program and fixing any inconsistencies and issues that we discover. That sounds quite straightforward, and it's a lot easier in Studio than it used to be in LEGO Digital Designer. But there are still a number of complications that I'll explain. There will still need to be some manual adjustments. For example, not all types of decorated parts are available in Studio. For example, the stickered parts for the Deli are not yet available in the Bricklink or Studio parts databases, so for some of them I've made my own. However, I've already got those parts from the set, so I actually don't need them in the parts list I'm going to use for the procurement. Studio has the ability to export the parts list in a number of formats. It also has the ability to upload the list of parts required for a model to a wanted list on the Bricklink website. You need a Bricklink account to do this. You can give the wanted list a name, and you can maintain multiple wanted lists in your Bricklink account. You can also edit and adjust the wanted list, and we'll need to do a bit of that for this model. And you can also tell Bricklink how many of those parts you already have. To do that, I'm going to use a database of the parts I already have, which I maintain in Excel. It's not always completely accurate, and I don't keep a massive stock of every type of part, but it does give me an indication of the type and colour of parts I have, so I can go and check the parts in my collection. I can also easily look up the parts that came with the original set using an inventory of the parts from a source such as Brickset or Bricklink. Using those sources, I can fill in the details in the wanted list of the parts I already have, so that I don't need to buy those ones. So that gives me a list in the wanted list in Bricklink that I can use to start looking for the parts I need to buy to complete the build of this MOC. This is also a good point to do a final check for any inconsistent part usage and mistakes. For example, using two different types of bricks that do the same job, or using part variants that are very rare or expensive. So we're able to work through any issues until everything is resolved. And it's worth going back and fixing any parts issues in the Studio model so that it still represents the model that we're going to build. Now we need to work out where to get the parts to build this MOC. Choosing where to get parts and the suppliers to get them from can be one of the most difficult parts of the procurement process. You can easily be caught out by minimum order values, different prices from what you expected, quality variations, shipping charges, and suppliers who only have a few of the parts you need. I'll definitely have to place multiple orders for a MOC like this. Some time ago I made a separate video on sourcing because it's quite a big topic. See the link in the card above and in the description below. In that video I explain how I choose where to buy LEGO bricks and the ordering process for the parts I need. I can potentially get LEGO for this MOC from lots of different places. If I already have the parts I need, then I can use my stock of parts and sets that I already own. I can buy sets for cannibalizing adapting or to put into stock. I can visit a LEGO store and see if the LEGO Pick-a-Brick wall has any of the parts that I need. I can order online from lego.com using their Pick-a-Brick parts ordering service. And also I can look for bricks I need on Bricklink, choosing the stores I want to buy from, and also choosing whether to buy new or used parts. There are plenty of other ways to buy LEGO, such as Brick Owl or even eBay, but I mostly use the PAB wall for common parts that I need lots of, and Bricklink for specific parts I need for a particular MOC. Of course, used bricks tend to be cheaper than new ones, but that isn't always the case. So I'll have to look around different sources to get the best deal for what I want to buy. Next is the step to place the orders for the parts. This is where I choose the parts from the selected Bricklink stores, make shopping carts with those stores, and actually spend the money to order the parts I need. I showed the creation of shopping carts on the Bricklink and LEGO websites in my video on where to buy LEGO. Often I'll combine purchasing for several projects that I have in development at the same time, and this can avoid having lots of small orders from different stores and so save on shipping costs. So through quite a long process involving several orders, I managed to source all the parts I need for this MOC from 3 or 4 Bricklink stores, plus using some parts that I already had. I'm not doing haul videos for the purchase of the parts, as it makes for a pretty boring video, although I am excited to see the parts coming together as I gather them into project trays for my different projects. It's always worth checking deliveries against what was ordered, counting the items and checking them for colour, quality or defects. Here you can see there are the by now familiar parts coming together, and when we have all the parts needed is the time to start thinking about the build. So that's how I did the procurement of all the parts I need for this MOC. I created the parts list, worked out where to get all the parts from, ordered the parts and sorted them out when they arrived, all in preparation for the start of the actual physical build of the MOC. So look out for the next video in this series, in which we'll be starting the physical build of the actual model. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so that you don't miss out on any updates. Thanks for spending the time with me, and join me again for more updates on LEGO sets, modular buildings, my own designs and builds, updates on my LEGO City and other LEGO related content.